Good evening, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World News Tonight, live from Warsaw. Putin confirms US envoy Witkoff is heading to Moscow as the latter faces bipartisan backlash from Democrats and Republicans at home for aiding the Russians in the peace talks on Ukraine. We'll have more on that in a moment, but first let's take a look at tonight's headlines. 3 Polish defense companies to benefit from safe loan scheme. Poland acquires 3 submarines from Sweden. And Africans celebrate Thanksgiving in eastern Poland. As US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is poised to visit Russia to continue peace negotiations next week, the vast majority of Trump supporters believe that Ukraine should not give up its territory, thus rejecting the Trump administration's plan for the war-torn country. Todd reports.
The vote is closed and it's been adopted. Congratulations. The alternative motions fall.
The European Parliament on Thursday overwhelmingly voted to condemn President Donald Trump's peace proposal for Ukraine, which envisioned Kyiv giving up territory it controls. And that disdain is mirrored in the US, where a poll has revealed strong support for Kyiv against Moscow's invasion. 72% of Trump voters believe the US should help Ukraine and hold Russia accountable for the war, according to a poll for the Vandenberg coalition. Senior Republican Mitch McConnell has blasted the White House for what he says amounts to appeasement.
A deal that rewards aggression wouldn't be worth the paper it's written on.
Experts say the move is notably unpopular among Trump's Make America Great Again movement.
It was really interesting to me to see that a vast majority of Republicans, including the MAGA base, do not like the idea of forcing Ukraine to give up territory it controls.
In fact, only 16% of Trump voters believe Ukraine needs to give up more territory. On Wednesday, it emerged that Trump's point man in the peace negotiations, Steve Witkoff, had told a top aide to Vladimir Putin, Yuri Ushakov, that he could pressure Ukraine and the US president into accepting a Moscow-friendly peace deal. There's been a bipartisan backlash, with some branding Witkoff a traitor who should be working for the United States, not Russia. Experts say Witkoff's approach is fundamentally flawed.
Witkoff seems to view Russia as a partner. Russia is the aggressor. They're killing, they're bombing civilians deliberately. They're abducting children. It is really an awful situation. And he's viewing the United States as Russia's partner, and Ukraine as an object to be divvied up or just discussed and decided about.
And then the Russians decided to use Witkoff to jam through their own proposal. There was not so much wrong with Steve Witkoff trying to work a channel with the Russians. There was everything wrong with Steve Witkoff not examining the proposal point by point. He should have known that it was internally inconsistent and inconsistent indeed with President Trump's stated objectives.
The original US proposals have now been significantly reworked after a meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio over the weekend. President Putin said on Thursday that the idea Witkoff is pro-Russian was nonsense. He also confirmed the US Special Envoy will return to Moscow for more talks next week. Todd for TVP World.
According to unofficial information acquired by Polish media, 3 Polish defense companies will benefit from the European Safe Loan Scheme. Huta Stalowa Wola Steelworks, WB Group and ICEYE are set to be placed on the programme's shortlist. Our defense correspondent Zuzanna Jurek has this report.
43.7 billion euros. That is how much Poland is set to benefit from the EU's Security Action for Europe or Safe Loan Mechanism. With the money lined up, the Polish Defense Ministry had to decide exactly on how to spend it.
A lot of what we will focus on is related to the East Shield. The East Shield is a European project. The development of drone and anti-drone systems is a priority.
This is poised to include the partially state-owned Huta Stalowa Wola, the producer of the Borsuk infantry fighting vehicle.
Borsuk will replace the old BWP-1, i.e. post-Soviet equipment largely donated to Ukraine as part of our military support to Kyiv. And this equipment must be replaced with modern Borsuk combat vehicles. We need nearly 1,500 units. At present, we have ordered 111 such vehicles.
The Polish drone and anti-drone systems manufacturer WB Group also appeared on the shortlist of alleged beneficiaries. TVP World sources could not confirm the details yet, but suggested that the reports are not unfounded, particularly as the manufacturer participates in a number of flagship defense projects, including on the eastern border.
You can find our sensor systems, which is existing there, which is in use each day. It is a system called AMSTA, which is delivering information about the entrance from the neighboring countryside, not only by humans, but also, for example, by unmanned platforms. We can deliver such information to the user. We can collect this information and create, together with this, a kind of a wall.
Finally, the Polish satellite producer based in Finland, ICEYE, is also speculated to be among the selected contractors, particularly as experts note.
Reconnaissance from the air, from space, because all long-range strike systems such as HIMARS, HOMAR-K, Chunmo and all other long-range systems used by the Polish army require so-called targeting. This means the ability to designate targets in near real time.
And while about 90% of the projects are to be carried out at home,
these projects will be carried out as individual tasks, but in large part, about 20 will be conducted with other countries.
Which means good news not just for Polish manufacturers.
If you think about the industry, defense industry is very fragmented today. And the whole idea is to kind of pull together the demand by joint procurement, maybe from one or two suppliers in the supply chain, the European supply chain, European local content, and get less of fragmentation, more integration, more interoperability.
When asked for a quote, some of the individual companies indicated they would not be able to comment until Friday afternoon. With the deadline for presenting a list of projects to the European Commission scheduled for the end of the month, it can be expected that the beneficiaries will be revealed imminently. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
French lawmakers have urged President Emmanuel Macron to reject the Mercosur trade partnership deal with South America. Poland is also one of the staunchest opponents of the deal. Could Paris effectively block the controversial agreement? Alex Cadier reports from Brussels.
It's the EU's big cows for cars trade deal with 5 South American countries. It's been 25 years in the making. It may just be a few weeks away from crossing the finish line. The free trade deal removes duties on 91% of exports from the EU to Mercosur over 15 years. The EU will progressively remove duties on 92% of Mercosur exports over 10 years. To protect European farmers, the amount of sensitive farm products like poultry and pork going from Mercosur to the EU will be capped. European farmers aren't happy. From Warsaw to Paris, they've been protesting for months, warning that cheap South American products flooding into Europe could completely collapse their businesses. Experts say the deal will be good for Europe as a whole.
Any concerns about that we would be overwhelmed by Brazilian products are totally taken, I think, out of the blue. Of course, there are certainly for consumers, the positive sides is that I think about oilseeds, about sugar, cane sugar, about other commodities products will come into the European market. But anyway, these are for us the cheaper products.
Ursula von der Leyen's Commission has offered new safeguards to Europe's farmers, which would kick in if Mercosur imports drive down European prices. A vote on these will go to Parliament on December 16th. She wants to get the European Parliament and member states on board before December 20th, when she heads to Brazil, hoping to sign off on a quarter-century of negotiations. But 2 EU countries may still rain on her parade.
Not much happens in the European Union when two large countries, such as France and Poland, are in opposition to such an important deal.
While Poland firmly rejects the deal, one man's ambiguity could still make the difference. If the French president decides to block it, it could slash the EU's hopes of a Christmas Mercosur miracle. And President Macron is under pressure. The French parliament has just passed a resolution urging him to block Mercosur. A deal without Poland and France seems unlikely, but Polish officials here in Brussels tell me it's a done deal. The French say it's too soon to tell. After 25 years of negotiation, it will all be decided in the next 3 weeks. In Brussels, I'm Alex Cadier for TVP World.
Thousands gathered in the streets of Sofia, the capital city of Bulgaria, to protest the proposed 2026 budget. Today, the government withdrew the project, hoping to curb the growing unrest. But given Bulgaria's political instability, the unrest might signal turbulent times for the ruling minority coalition. Paweł Trzaskowski has this report.
I gathered the Council for Joint Governance. I gathered the supporting parties, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, and told them that this budget must be withdrawn.
With these words, the Bulgarian government admitted it bows down to the voice from the streets of Sofia. On Wednesday evening, thousands attended protests across the capital, opposing the proposed 2026 budget.
In this budget, we have taxes which supposedly no one was going to raise. And it turns out we're raising taxes.
Apart from a tax hike, the protesters are also demonstrating against funds distribution. The middle class is to carry the burden of increasing pay in the budget sector.
The government continues to funnel resources into the power structures and an oversized administration that is in desperate need of deep, systematic reform. These 500 to 600,000 people effectively serve as their guaranteed voters.
But experts say these protests are also a part of a larger anti-government sentiment.
The current form of the Bulgarian government is, in a sense, an absolutely inappropriate model.
The coalition government of Rosen Zhelyazkov is a minority government that needs support from the opposition, run by an oligarch sanctioned by the US.
And they're backed by the party Movement for Rights and Freedoms New Beginning of Delian Peevski, a person who is considered to be a Bulgarian tycoon, but most importantly, he's sanctioned under Magnitsky law.
This malfunction of the government was best exemplified by the fact that it was not the Prime Minister who announced the government's retreat from the controversial budget proposal, but the leader of Citizens for European Development of Bulgaria, one of the coalition parties.
Unlike other people, even if only one person protests, I try to listen to what they say.
And Wednesday night's protests might suggest that the next wave of dissatisfaction with the government is forming again. Bulgaria has been rocked by political crises for the last 5 years, with 9 different governments in place, changing roughly every 6 months. Paweł Trzaskowski for TVP World.
The first snow has fallen and thoughts turn naturally to the season's first celebration, Thanksgiving. Not traditionally a Polish occasion, but in Lublin, one community is marking the spirit of togetherness and gratitude. Karolina Szaplan has more.
This is Lublin, a city where the Maria Curie-Skłodowska University has become a natural magnet, drawing a growing community of African students who now call Lublin home. And although the community is flourishing, there's a sense that daily life doesn't always bring students and long-time residents together.
I think it's completely fine that Lublin is opening up to new people and that we can welcome them here. But unfortunately, we don't have anyone like that in our circle of friends.
But one event is hoping to bridge that gap: African Thanksgiving, a celebration inviting the wider city to share a little warmth as winter gathers at the door. This event is the creation of Pastor and a community activist, himself an alumnus of Maria Curie-Skłodowska University, Abraham Diomande.
The Thanksgiving is the day where all cultures meet and we exchange the best of what we have, the fashion, the food, the people, the love. So in a short word, it's a day of love and sharing positivity around us.
An evening of spiritual nourishment with gospel music, Polish fashion modelled by African students themselves, and food donated by small businesses across Lublin. African Thanksgiving, thawing the November frost as the first days of winter settle in.
Poland is buying 3 submarines from Sweden for nearly 2.5 billion euros to boost its deterrence capabilities in the Baltic region, in a move the Polish defense minister describes as the biggest ever leap forward in terms of Polish military purchases. We'll be talking about this with our guest, Jakob Holmgren from the Swedish Institute of International Affairs, in a moment. But first, let's watch Karolina Stolzmann's report.
Poland will purchase 3 Swedish submarines under its Orca program in a deal worth around $2.7 billion.
This is the biggest leap forward we have ever made in terms of military equipment for the Polish armed forces.
The Swedish offer was judged the most suitable among bids from 6 different countries. The vessels chosen by Polish authorities are subs A-26 Blekinge-class 5th-generation submarines, which were specifically designed to operate in the Baltic Sea. They can be equipped with a vertical launch system capable of firing missiles with a range of over 1,000 kilometers.
That would mean that Polish deterrence option, if the submarine is equipped with that system, would highly increase because, being very, very frank, Moscow is in our range. And Russian strategists and Russian decision makers would have to take into consideration that opportunity, that Polish capability.
But the new agreement is more than just the vessels themselves.
The submarines are just one element of the negotiation package, which includes also technology transfer, which includes the role of Polish industry in construction of the submarines and offset programs. So once the contract is finally signed, then we will be able to credibly assess that decision.
Poland and Sweden also want to create a joint system for underwater operations and strengthen interoperability between their navies.
Together, Sweden and Poland will take greater responsibility for security in the Baltic Sea. We are now significantly deepening our political, defense, and industrial cooperation.
The new partnership comes against the backdrop of continuous threats to the Baltic, from GPS jamming to assaults on critical infrastructure and undersea cables, as well as the ever-present Russian shadow fleet.
And to talk about the purchase of Swedish submarines by Poland, we're joined by Jakob Holmgren, director of the Swedish Institute of International Affairs. Good evening.
Good evening.
So let me start with a quote. Together, Sweden and Poland will take greater responsibility for security in the Baltic Sea. We are now significantly deepening our political, defense and industrial cooperation, says Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson. How is the purchase of 3 submarines deepening the Polish-Swedish political cooperation?
Well, I think it deepens that collaboration very concretely in terms of increased and enhanced security by sharing a very important military and platform. It deepens collaboration through the industrial collaboration that this will lead to. And it is also a very concrete expression of that strategic partnership, which was signed about a year ago when the Polish President Donald Tusk was visiting the NB8 summit in Sweden, Harpsund, Sweden, when there was a bilateral strategic partnership signed between our 2 countries.
Now, talking about partnership, is Poland truly regarded by Stockholm as a vital partner in the Baltic region?
Yeah, I think so. I have seen how Swedish governments, and I would say that there is a very strong bipartisan support for this, have worked very hard to enhance the relations between Sweden and Poland, also with Germany, but the two very big and important southern littoral states and allies, with Poland most notably, as we are talking about today. That is a very strong and strong strategic interest of the Swedish government, and I think it will remain so, irrespective of which government, because we are, of course, sharing both membership in NATO and a joint threat from Russia. Seeing how Russia is stepping up its grey zone or hybrid activities, I don't think it needs much explaining that we, as strong allies sharing the Baltic Sea, must work very closely together.
You've mentioned Germany. Now, Poland decided to buy its new submarines from Sweden and not from Germany. Now, could this herald a new regional cooperation framework? Now, could Poland be simply invited to maybe join Nordic countries' deterrence formats, such as the Nordic Baltic 8 or Nordefco?
That I don't know. I mean, JEF or Nordefco and NB8. I mean, Poland will remain a very strong strategic partner. I know that there is talk about the Nordic Baltic Plus, and there is the Nordic Baltic Plus Plus, and then, of course, we have the ongoing reform of the Council of Baltic Sea States, where Poland is a prominent member and currently the chair. All of these political formats, I foresee, will be further intensified. But then we're, of course, talking about an operational reality where sharing such a vital and extremely important system as submarines, same technology designed for the shallow waters of the Baltic Sea, and thus kind of creating an unpredictability for the adversary is an extremely powerful joint statement. So we have both a tactical and a strategic collaboration that I see will be further enhanced.
Right, but we're talking literally about 3 submarines. So how will the purchase of 3 submarines by Poland change the security of the Baltic Sea?
Well, I think it will be an extremely important enhancement of the joint deterrence capability of allies in the Baltic Sea. These are maybe not many boats, but they have incredible qualifications and capabilities.
What are these submarines capable of?
Well, they are first of all an extremely unpredictable and silent and stealthy, ears under the water, which, of course, with their weaponry, provide a constant, unpredictable, unseen, stealthy threat for Russia as our joint adversary, and enhancing that capability and working together from the northern shores, that is Sweden, and the southern shores, that is the Baltic, Poland, will of course enhance that deterrence effect. And then on the technical capabilities, I think it needs no explaining that this is one of the most modern and also actually most suitable and adapted submarine and underwater technologies to the shallow waters of the Baltic Sea that we are sharing. So I think there are many reasons for why this is a good deal, and that it presents a fantastic joint collaboration.
Now, Poland is buying submarines from Sweden in the biggest such deal in its modern history. Now, is Sweden investing in Polish defense industry as well?
Yes, as far as I understand, that there is always in such big and strategic deals a whole lot of offset going on. I mean, Sweden just not so long ago bought these portable aerial defense system produced by Poland, and as far as I understand, parts of these submarines will be built in Polish shipyards, and we're talking about tech transfer as part of this within this submarine and underwater area. And there are maybe other industrial collaborations which will be part of this. And I mean, I think it's important to say that there is no contract signed yet, but there is this very strong expression of intent, as I understand it, to deepen and now really negotiate these details. This is, I know from many other situations that Sweden is, for instance, when Sweden only a couple of weeks ago through Saab sold Gripen air fighters to Colombia, where government-to-government relations are always an important part, there was important offsets, which that is kind of always happening, and I foresee that to happen in this case as well.
Now, as we've already said, Poland decided against buying submarines from Germany. Well, Germany has its submarines already tested. Now, Sweden will be de facto testing its new project in Poland. Now, given the dynamic geopolitical situation, as you described it, with Russia and Russia's hybrid attacks in the Baltic region, now, is it a smart move for Warsaw to acquire a prototype?
Well, I mean, Sweden has a more than 100-year-long history of producing and developing submarines. I don't know how many generations, but at least 10 or 15 generations. So this is yet another generation in a long tradition of Swedish engineering when it comes to underwater capabilities. So I wouldn't be so worried about that. And this project is, as I understand it, in advanced stages, and then sharing both, the costs and the technological advancements, where, as I understand, there will also be tech transfer with Poland, I think would be of mutual benefit, because we should, of course, remember that we have a very unpredictable and reckless adversary that we, need to prepare and deter. So I think that makes a lot of sense, and there are obviously other areas where I'm sure that Sweden would kind of buy and enjoy and purchase and benefit from Polish expertise. And it's also not only a question of technological collaboration, it's really also, as we talked about in the beginning, an example of how we clearly are saying that we're sharing values and a strategic assessment, and it's an expression of wanting to work more closely together, I believe. So there are several dimensions to this collaboration.
Now, Leslie, when will these submarines be delivered? Because given the delays in the Swedish program concerning this prototype A-26 submarine, how likely will it hold the 2030 deadline as described by the Polish government?
That is, of course, impossible for me to say, but I dare to say that if there is now a deal, this will, of course, not only introduce a very strong, push to it, but also a commitment to really stick to this. And I think it is extremely important that we realize that we have some kind of a window of opportunity, and that we need to start and build our deterrent capabilities in what I would brand as a frontline region these days. I think everybody understands that this needs to happen in quickly and safely, of course, with quality in focus as this is being developed.
Jakob Holmgren, Director of the Swedish Institute of International Affairs, was our guest this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching and stay with us for more interviews and news here on TVP World.